I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. Our time together every week is about 15 minutes, give or take. And in this short form podcast, in addition to sharing my unsolicited thoughts about our industry, I also share from my SEO testing, field data observations. So this week, definitely pay attention. I've got a few things to say. You ready? Let's go. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 3 of Confessions of an SEO. I'm calling it Too Many Header Tags on the Dance Floor. I'll explain that later. Last week, I shared my testing data in the podcast, and I thought, wow, now everyone is aware of this, and at least for their content, this makes it where they can focus on their optimization, knowing they can always get into the show with chunked content. Now, in today's show, I'm going to go back over that concept more now from an operational standpoint, not just a vague label like chunking, and just assume everybody knows what that means. So I'm going to diagram chunking as well as get us all up to date with a study that offers some insights into what the December core update was all about. Now, if I haven't made it clear, Vizex, due to my being a contributor to it and partner with its creator, Kim Albee, basically Vizex is now the sponsor of Confessions. So you'll be the first to hear about any new or planned features like the app version for HubSpot sites. But the real value to you, of course, is if you're in the beta group. And like now, go to Vizex.ai, get in for the WordPress plugin. The founder's pricing on that is insane, but in a good way. There's a 90-day free trial, and if you do see this as a multi-site solution for what you're involved in, make sure you mention that on your application. Now, this is the first horizontal blog analysis tool, which is huge. Just think about that for a second. Because of what it can do, it puts you in complete site view of how all your pages relate to each other. It isn't just about a comparison of two articles to each other. It's the whole enchilada. You get a trackable connectivity score so you know exactly where each of your posts stands in relation to each other. Plus, the analysis provides strategic recommendations with complete tracking. It's not just add more links. You receive specific action plans about what you already have. You know, things like, should you update it? Should you combine it with another page? Or maybe even remove it because it's too far off your main topic or a duplicate of something else. And this roadmap is organized so you can track your progress across your entire blog. Not kidding. So go to Vizzex.ai, apply, and we'll reach out to you to get you started. Yeah, so after last week's episode, I thought I had communicated something tested and valid and completely in alignment with both patents and search results test. And my job is done. Au contraire, mon frère. Best way I can think to demonstrate this is to share my actual experience last week when I unpacked the chunking concept for a close colleague and friend. They were one person. And it went like this. Me, hey, I've got this really cool way to ensure that anything you publish, at the very least, you're going to get indexed. Might not get served because I can't say, if you haven't optimized the page sufficiently to compete, but it will get you indexed. Them. Great. What is it? Me. Well, it's born out of the patents related to information retrieval, but it was something that I observed in my testing that caused it to stand out, and it is, drumroll, the ratio of headers to words in an article. Them. Wow, that's cool. Me. Let me show you on one of your articles. See this one here? It's indexed according to Search Console, but it's in and out of being served. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out. And there's 1,000 words on it, but only 2 header tags other than your H1. So I'm going to flow in 8 more semantically related header tags. Some are going to be H2s, some are going to be H3s, but that'll create that higher ratio needed, the number of headers we're aiming for is close to about 10% ratio. And then I'll resubmit the article to Search Console and you'll see what I mean. Them. Wait! That's too many headers. Me, somewhat calmly. Well, what are you basing that on? Because I've got data that proves that this is a thing, like at least a year's worth, testing most every day. Them. Well, I don't have that. I guess I just think that sounds like too many. Me. Well, remember, I first told you this. You thought it was cool. Them. Yeah, but now we're looking at a specific article, and it's only now that it's sinking in what it means, what you were saying about chunking content. Me. Yeah. Why don't we watch and see what happens? By the way, I came up with the title for this episode from a song on the episode of the Flight of the Conchords comedy show. And I think initially going to title it by one of their lyrics, which was 5 to 1 is a brodeo, but that's a bit obtuse. The song from the episode is, well, they use a different word, but basically too many dudes on the dance floor. Never fear. There's a link to the music video in the description, and you can thank me later. So, too many header tags. But was it really? I mean, if it was, then this would be bad for the page, right? So what exactly happened? Well, what I thought would happen. The page went mostly out of where it was. It was like mostly out of performance in Search Console to now a steady presence. And I know in Search Console, if you're not familiar with that data from Google, it's average performance data across various related terms and devices and countries and everything. So I've filtered it down for the US and for the desktop version. And the average position of the article when it was in was around averaging position 67. And after making those changes, it changed to position 47. So that's in and out with an average position on page 7. And I say page 7 because there's typically 10 results per page. And after making these changes, it went to an average position of 47, which is up 2 pages, to page 5 of results. Now, in truth, this is a super competitive generic query in marketing. And that's where its competitiveness comes from. The fact that it's so commonly used, but it's not because it's a high-ticket item like criminal defense. But it doesn't take a genius to recognize that if content is in and out, it will do better when it's in the results most, if not all, of the time. And this in and out display is a thing that we've observed previously in Google results. But you may wonder, and you may be thinking, Carolyn, you still have 4 more pages to climb before you make a dent in visibility. But the thing here is, this structure thing is a thing. Now, I admit, I have on the surface what seems like irrational excitement about this article on page 5, but it's had the interlinking guidance from Vizex, and now it has the updated structure as well. So after adding in headers and resubmitting, today before I was recording this, I searched for essentially the main query of the page, and just so the sticklers in the audience understand, I did it from a cache-cleared browser, incognito mode, without being signed into any account. So it was as clean as you could be. Well, it showed up in the AI overlay, even though it's not ranking on page 1, but averaging on page 5. So the chunking provided, obviously, the ability for Google to determine, or I should say Gemini, to determine just how relevant that content was, because the structure provided the boundaries so that AI or any large language model could recognize it to score it and later retrieve it. Hold that thought. Meanwhile, this week, Lily Ray's agency, if you don't know who she is, you can find her on LinkedIn. She does a lot of these large studies, having access to a lot of very cool tools. And she put in an analysis on what happened during the December core update. And if you are not aware, Google from time to time goes through and says, we're gonna redo a few things. And she was using the Systrix visibility index data and came up with a list of winners and losers. Now, I think you can tell a lot from the losers. So caught my eye was exactly who lost the most. And the biggest decline in visibility when compared from before and after the update was Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia is what Google basically adopted in the beginning as their knowledge graph work. It appears in some of the earlier patents even that they were doing this. Now, of course, Google's knowledge graph has matured beyond Wikipedia, but still the irony runs deep on this one. So Wikipedia, once the darling of the Google search results, the paragon of internal linking, its massive loss of visibility was notable. And they compared it I'm still working out what they consider a point. I presume that is probably a term, but they went down 435 points, the drop from one position to another, and they added those all up. And it wasn't just Wikipedia. Other big losers were Facebook, Reddit, Quora, and Stack Overflow. So then, obviously, anybody is going to look at that and go, well, what sort of shared features? What's the commonality between all of those different platforms? And then looking at the winners in the data and comparing that, because there are other similar large, similar platforms to Wikipedia and Facebook and everything. It seemed comparatively that the losers may have lost due to the fact that they don't have the strictest of verifications, especially for author attributions, and that probably did them in. And if you think about it, Wikipedia kind of fits neatly into that user-generated content category that got hit, but Wikipedia lets people in some ways post anonymously, right? They don't have to verify who they are when they make these edits in Wikipedia. Now, the update, like I said, showed consistent decline for platforms relying on what we call crowdsourced or open, but non-strict contribution models. What was interesting is it crossed all verticals, so dictionaries, directory review sites like Yelp, hotels and travel. It reminded me much like my parents who promised, when I was in junior high, promised a pool when we moved from Miami to Lakeland for high school. That pool only materialized after we were in college. So getting back to what I'm talking about, the promise of rewards for authorship that we have been told about for years may finally have arrived. Google for a while, it's been a while. I'm going to say at least 10 years, if not more. But this verifiable authorship may have become a thing, or the very fact that you have a process in mind to verify the authorship have opened a portion of the SERPs. So, well, as they say, game on. Who knew 3 years ago we'd be at this crossroads where Google's index now prioritizes semantic density, structure, and, oh God, eat. We now have evidence that content that is indexed and served, even if it's way back on page 5 of search results, can be scored as relevant to queries over other higher ranking content and leapfrog over them to appear in that AI overlay on page 1. So if you're chunking and you're optimizing for query and able to control the topical radius of your content, the world of whatever this is called, whether it's SEO, GEO, AIO, whatever, now it can open up so you can win from way back. But here's the kicker. The matter of content indexation has now grown in an order of magnitude. That's it for me this week. All right, do yourself a favor. Get into the Vizex beta for WordPress 90 days free trial for the world's first helpful content analysis tool. And if you're on another content management platform such as HubSpot, apply anyway. We have app integrations on the whiteboard, and your application alone could help us prioritize the next one. And Indexilla is my indexer tool, and now the exclusive provider of the crawl or no crawl indexation reports from my research, like the things that I just talked about today. You can find it at indexilla.io. Now more than ever, AI makes the indexation of your content into Google and Bing essential. Do not leave it to chance. Thank you for listening, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.